Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspective on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week, we'd like to talk to you about teamwork in marriage specifically, and all the things that you'll be able to accomplish more quickly when you just work together.
Yeah, before we hop in, just want to encourage you to lean into our community and connect with us. You can do that by searching Marriage is Tougher on our social platforms. That's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, you can go to marriageistougher.com, fill out the form that's at the bottom, and you can reach out to us. We will reach back out, see what topic you'd like to do, and get you going. Also, all of our episodes are archived there, so if you'd like to go back and see some topics we talk about, you can get at that resource. Again, that's marriageistougher.com, or again, search any of our social platforms searching Marriage is Tougher. So thank you again. We want to really build a community, hear what you have to say, and take any feedback or comments. All right, let's get into this episode.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought this episode this week or the topic idea. Reason being is we've done a lot over the last year together, and a lot of that has stemmed from, working through the Ramsey program. A lot of that has stemmed from also going to marriage counseling. And, a lot of it has also just come from that desire we have to improve our marriage. Right. There's a lot of things that we've wanted to do that we're very close to doing. And, just being on the same page has made that possible.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say I'm proud of you guys for being, awesome. Continuing to grow, not only the financial things, but really everything, just your relationship, putting that as priority, understanding that sets up your family and the legacy that you want to leave behind, which I know is very important to you. But yeah, I mean, this topic was just, spurred off by just watching you guys and, just being a part of your life and witnessing, another milestone that you guys are doing financially. And it was just like, man, like when you are locked in, marriage is a wonderful thing. And there's just something about completing your goals together and hitting those steps together that really strengthens your marriage and sets it up to overcome any would-be challenges that are going to be in the future.
Yeah. And, speaking to the financial piece, if you're a new listener, it would be news to you that I was financially wild. I was very much the spender in the family, and my wife was very much the saver. And I think initially, more or less, it was that I just didn't want to disappoint her anymore, as far as that was concerned, right? So I knew I had to get that in check. And it really started off with a conversation with you as I started to dive into books and things. More or less, it was like I need some help, right? And you told me about Ramsey. I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a little bit by myself, and then the deeper I got into it, I kept hearing, "You got to do it together. You got to do it together," right? And so I brought it to her. She was a little bit resistant, and I don't think it was because the program didn't make sense. It was, I think, because I was bringing it to her, right? Like the wild money guys talking about how to fix the money situation. She's like, "All right, bro." Right. And I think I was like, just take a chance on it, listen to the podcast. If you don't like it, that's fine, but I have a strong feeling that you will. This is going to change a lot for us. And, just that network of hosts that he's put together, the books that they produce, it kind of all encompasses like family values, right?
Hmm.
And family strength. So it's not just about money, but with that John Deloney, he talks a lot about relationship. There's often times now that I will walk into the bedroom while my wife's getting ready for wherever we're going, and she has the John Deloney podcast on in the background, and I'm like just nodding my head.
Hmm.
This is legit. I like that we are listening to the same people, and building the same values. Not only because we're listening to the podcast, but because we talk about it now. And man, our our marriage is a lot stronger than it was. And that's not to say that we don't have hiccups. We still have problems. We still have disagreements, but we just get through it so much faster now. You know, so being on the same team is legit.
Yeah, I mean, I like that last part you said. It's not that we're perfect and not that we don't have challenges, but we just get through it a lot faster, right? You're able to identify, realize that you're not on the same page, and then really go after whatever that solution is. Like is it submission by either one of you in a sense of, am I going to lay down my own self for the good of our marriage, right? But once
Mhm.
you've set up um, once you've set up and proven that you can tackle things together, it's easier to be like, you know what I am doing is ridiculous. So I need to stop. I need to stop so that we can move forward. And it happens
Right.
kind of at both parties. And if both parties are doing that, if you catch one on a bad day, the other one will just lay it down. I mean, if you're both having a bad day, it might take a little bit of work, but one of you will get to that and then you'll talk about it and you'll both be like, yeah, this was dumb. Like, this was just us being stubborn. This was just not paying attention. This is just us not tapping in. This is just not doing what we're supposed to be. So it's the anomaly when you're not doing whatever it is together and we're not on the same page. Not that's your normal, is you not being on the same page. And it's like once you start with um that habit, it becomes a habit, I should say. Once you start doing um that action, it becomes a habit. And once it's a habit, it's a lot easier for it to just become who you are. Then it's not as big of a stretch. It's still a stretch by any means because we're human, but it's not that
Right.
big of a stretch. It's more normal, more comfortable. Like, oh yeah, this is what we're supposed to do, so let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that happened to us recently too. We had a disagreement over something silly, right? And I think I know I told you a little bit about it, but we're at an event and we're having this disagreement, and it was, I'm not going to say it's not warranted, but just as big as we made it was not warranted, right? And it lasted for a little bit longer than it needed to. And just as you said, one of us ended up just laying down and approaching and saying, what are we doing? Right? You know, um, and the former us would have let that last for like a solid month, just
Mm,
not being cohesive in wanting to resolve the situation,
right.
right? And we would have, the messed up part about it is we would have still moved through life, right? And just moved through life broken rather than
Yeah.
like, let's get past this, let's talk about it, say our apologies, and talk about the situation, which used to be a lot more difficult for me than it is now. The counseling certainly helped with that, but I think more or less, like, I know what it looks like for us to be on the other side of an argument, right? And like, I always want to be there, right? So like, no matter what it is that we're going through, I always want to be on the other side of it. So even if I'm, if I've got these internal struggles, like, I know I'm right. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather be happy.
Man,
I'd
that's
rather be comfortable in this room with my wife.
hmm
I'd rather not lay my head to this pillow and, be thinking like, man, I really should have settled that. But now we're both about to sleep and I got to wake up in like 5 hours. I don't have the time to do this. Like there's so many reasons that we put things off. And, you know what I was going to say is, well, we've come to this new place in our relationship where we can agree to disagree, right? We can approach each other and say, hey, listen, I still feel this way about the situation, but we need to move past it. And, I'm willing to say I'm sorry for the way I reacted, and that goes both ways. But there are times as well where, we might say something along the lines of, okay, I understand how you feel. I have some questions, but if you need me to leave that there, then at this moment I'll do that. And it's weird because I think you can come back to a topic, but I kind of like the that setup where, look, we're going to leave this here for now. We're going to just table this. If we need to just walk away from this situation, then fine. But we'll kind of bookmark it and work on some skills to be able to maybe not even get to that point in the future, or be able to better handle it in the future. And I mean, that takes some real teamwork.
yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, it's just you found what's worked for you. And
Hmm.
uh, I was, you know, scrolling through something and I heard a lady say, she said, like if people understood really how marriage could be, they'd fight so much more for it to be there. And it's just like,
Yeah.
she was just talking about how, like, do you can understand what it's like to be in that space of teamwork, cohesion, being able to just accompany your spouse through life, like be that companion, be there for, and just enjoy that space with this person that has decided they're going to do the same for you. Like there's really nothing that you can't handle, nothing that you can't overcome. And it's just a amazing space. And it just hit me so hard was like, yes, like if people just could get there, right? Because there's so many people just getting in relationships, um, without working on themselves, without being healed, having brokenness, right? And they're taking it into their relationship with with a person that has that same scenario, and
Hmm.
they just, no matter how great of people they are, know how much they want to do it, like without come together, working on your that relationship, but also working on yourself, like that you can there's a level that you just won't achieve in your companionship and like wanting to be together. um, but when you hit that, and whatever that is for you and your spouse, like it's just a amazing feeling. So I like what you said about like you can see yourself already through it and on the other side, and like that is your motivation to tackle those things. That's like, man, that makes so much sense. That lens to look through it makes it easier. Like, okay, so what do I have to do to get there? Or what am I not doing to get there? And let's get there, because that's where I want to live. I want to live
Right.
in the place of peace. I want to live in the place of through, like talking through it, going through it, you know, and there's so much growth that happens there, right? I know you guys have had to work on that, even that ability to agree to disagree, right? But it's just life is too short to hold on to something like you said that could be for a month, that you could squash in one conversation.
Yeah, for sure, man. It took a lot of growth for us to get there. Um, it takes a lot of growth to be able to, lay your own desires down in a moment. But you know, I'm sure many people, many men could relate to this, right? Because we've been in a spot before where we're having a disagreement about something, or we're just not cohesive for whatever amount of time, and then you maybe go out into the world and go to work or whatever. You have some success in some specific area, and then you come home and you're so used to being able to share that with your wife and like just embrace and be congratulated, but you've left yourself in that space of and then it doesn't feel appropriate to come home and embrace her and and talk about the wins for the day and like, hey, look what I was able to kill and drag home for the
Hmm.
family. I had enough of that. I'm so done with that.
That's good. So good.
you know because who are you talking to then? Like, of course you got your friends or whatever, but it's not the same, right? It's like, I did this for us, for our family, and like I can't share that with you right now because it doesn't feel right,
Right.
you know and then what are you gonna do? Wait another week when like that the feelings of it is gone?
Right. Yeah. Oh,
Like, oh
by
yeah,
the way.
remember that day I came home?
Right.
I did this.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You know, so as you are continuing to grow and you've been doing some reflection on this past year, what are some ways or some things that allowed you to get there? Right? You said it took some time. Is there any actionable things or mindset shifts or tasks that you had to do, either individually or collectively? You guys decided we're going to do this so that we can achieve kind of where you are.
Yeah, it's I think off the top of my head, it's the regular conversations, right? It's the regular check-ins, at least weekly for us has been working. Um, Not only just so we know what's going on in the family and what we have coming up, but it allows us the space to converse about what we individually would like to see happen, and then have a conversation about how we can make that work together, right? um, we all know that individually our desires, wants, needs can change, but if we're consistently bringing those to the table and having discussions about them, your spouse will help you bring that to fruition, right? And there are times where we have long drawn out dreams, but again, if you are consistently bringing that to the table and discussing it, and making it part of the grand plan, you, rather than feeling some type of way that oh, I don't get what I want, or I don't get to do what I want to do, we then get to make a picture of how it would look when we get to that place where we're able to do those things, because maybe it's something you just can't afford right now. Maybe it's something that we just don't have the time for. But like we talk about when we're setting goals, if let's say whatever it is, it has to be a year out. As long as we're talking about it throughout that year and saying, all right, well, my deadline for this, for one party that needs to execute on something, here's my deadline. And now we put that in stone, right? And maybe it needs to be a little bit flexible, but we put that in stone. And we're both reminding each other, hey, what's the progress? We're checking up on it. Are we going to be able to do this? All those things that go along with making a goal and hitting it. So number one is the communication. This is going to sound cliche, but I think number two for me is having a just do it attitude, right? There are a lot of times for me specifically where I know what I'm supposed to do, right? I know that I need to say this to my wife. I know it's about to be a difficult conversation, and it's tough to get over that hurdle consistently. And then I come home and I look at my children. I know what I want to, portray to them. And I look at my wife and I, like that's, we talked about earlier, that space that I want to be in. I know what that looks like. And so I convince myself, just do it. Just jump in. Like I was talking to one of my kids, right? Just, I know it's scary and I know it's uncomfortable, but you're going to feel so good on the other side of going down that big slide,
Hmm.
right? Or go, doing the swing for the first time by yourself, whatever it is, right? Little things. And starting a conversation is such a little thing, but it was so difficult for me for so long. And now just having that just do it attitude and no excuses, right? I've committed to my wife, I've committed to this marriage, I've committed to this family, I've committed to a result. And sometimes it's just a little hurdle you got to step over with the just do it attitude. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you get in your own skin, just executing on whatever those little things are. And I find it funny how it is so often just the little things that stop us from starting. And that's with anything, but specific to this, for me, it was just starting the conversation. It was something that my wife had said a while back. It's like, why am I always the one who has to come to the table, hands out? Like, I'm like, yeah, I understand that's not fair. So I will work on that. And I'm getting a lot better at it. We on the phone the other day took one of our podcast episodes, and I was like, hey, we have to have a black box conversation. So it's just one of the tools now in my belt because we talked about it with a guest on the podcast, and it was funny. We were about to go to this event, and I knew it was going to be pretty warm in there. And she got this really elaborate dress that was kind of heavy. I was like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I have to because I know what it's going to look like for her to be miserable all night at this
Hmm.
event. And so I was like, hey, babe, we got to have a black box conversation. She was very accepting of it. I was like, hey, I know you just spent all this money on this dress. Just thinking of what our night is going to look like, you might want to consider buying another dress. And like, what woman would say no to buying another dress? But she was just, I knew how excited she was about the specific dress that she got. And, she took what I had to say, took it under consideration, and did end up buying another dress that was, more comfortable for her to be in that night. She did say a couple times, I was very excited. A little disappointed that I had to do this, but I understand where you're coming from. And she was thankful that I mentioned it. You know, so that's a long-winded way to say, uh, you know, having conversations and having a just do it attitude to get you through the the spots that you're not so comfortable in.
No, I think that's great. Those are definitely um, two pillars of how to kind of get the get together as a team, and really, it's that it's a communication piece, and it's the talking, it's the action behind the talking, it's getting that going. That I think it's. I'm glad that you mentioned that because it is hard for some of us to see the value of starting a conversation, or to see the value of talking about it, even if it doesn't seem like there's going to be a result right now. So I like the piece that you said about as long as you're still communicating about it, you can check in, you can monitor how the progress is going, um, and it's whoever. It's a team effort of either bringing it up and saying, "Hey, this is where we are," or someone asking like, "Hey, you haven't talked about this. Where are we on it?" So you can take the, either posture depending on what the goal is and whose responsibility, quote unquote, it is to get this job done. Um, Anything else you want to say on this? Because that's we're coming up on time, but I think that was really good.
Yeah. I think the no excuses piece is very important as well because there are those times where, just specific to our financial goals recently, right? Um, we got a lot busier in the last couple months. And it makes it so easy to say, oh, we don't really have the time to have a conversation about the budget or, the plans or the goals. We'll just do that next week. Right. But if you really think about letting 2 weeks pass and not having any conversation about your goals, that's very difficult to allow to happen and stay on pace with your goals. Right. So the check in is necessary. And so just having a no excuse attitude as well. Because it, if you're typically having a half hour to hour conversation, going into it knowing that you don't necessarily have the time to do the full conversation, just upfront say, hey, let's pick out the most important things that we need to talk about, make it 10-15 minutes, and then, we'll catch back up the following week or whatever it is. Or just set aside some time that you don't typically do it. But no excuses.
That's good. All right. Well, you heard it first. Maybe not first, but hopefully this helped you um, work on some things that you knew to do in your marriage. And if not, some ideas of how to start and the importance of it. So that value um, will get you going. If anything on this conversation, spoke to you or really impacted you, please let us know. You can hit us up, DM us on IG, or leave a comment at the bottom at marriagestougher.com. But please reach out on any of our platforms, searching Marriage is Tougher, or going straight there, just so that we can reach out. And just wanted to say thank you if you have been listening for a while, or if this is your first time. Same thing, let us know how you found us and what impact this is making. But again, we just appreciate your time, and we're trying to see marriages win, and that's our goal. So reach out to us, hit us up in community, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.